Hi guys, so this week for my book, I read Firefly July, a year of very short poems. The author is Paul B. Genexo, if I said that right, and the illustrator is Melissa Sweet. The publisher is Candlewick. The copyright date is 2014. It is obviously poetry. It's got about 48 pages, and I would say the age group is probably 6 to 9. The book is about all the different seasons. It started into seasons, starting with spring. And so the poems that are in the book fit into the particular season in which they come up in. So there are 36 poems in the book, and so it's split between spring, summer, fall, and then winter. And so depending on what part of the book you're at, you can almost tell based on the images and based on what the poem is about. That will kind of indicate to you on your own without knowing for sure what season you're in, because if it's talking about like snow and stuff like that, obviously you're in winter, or like rain and then flowers, obviously that's spring. So there's a lot of imagery in this book, and I think that that's really good for kids because it allows them to form their own picture even if they aren't looking at the book. Maybe somebody's reading it aloud to them so they can just understand poetry or whatever it is. You can really picture it while somebody's reading them to you, and then the images that are within the book tie in very well to the poems. And so kind of it forms that bond and that association in the child's mind. I think this book is a good way for children to better understand the best parts of every season, and a good way to be introduced to poetry at the same time. The best part about it is that each of the poems are short, and so it doesn't require any extensive reading and understanding of the elements of poetry in order to understand the poem. And so I think that's why it would be a good starter book for younger children. It would allow them to dive into poetry without being so intimidated and overwhelmed that some books maybe could make them. For the activity for this one, I would ask students to decide what their favorite season is, and then based on their favorite season, I would ask them to write a poem about why they like that season. If there's something particular, like maybe somebody loves summer because they go to a baseball game every year with their family, then they could write about that. And it doesn't necessarily obviously need to be some form of a rhyming poem, especially if they're younger kids, but just to break up the sentences and kind of start to understand that structure, I think would be good for kids. Thanks.